Well, hey guys, welcome to episode 12 of What's Next Beyond Service. Sarah, it's good to see you again this morning. How are you doing?
Good to see you too. Doing well. Thanks,
Oh,
Scott.
absolutely. Yeah. And as always, thank you so much for what you bring to what I'm doing here and for inviting me under the umbrella uh, of what you're doing here, the power of our story. It's incredible the amount of people you're reaching and the good work that you're doing. And I'm very thankful that, you saw something in me and asked that I come on board and commit to sharing stories of veterans. And that's what we're doing here today. So I'm very excited to have our next guest with us, Derek Herrera. Derek is currently serving as a CTO and founder of a startup in the medical device space. So without further ado, I want to introduce Derek. Derek, welcome to the show, and give us a quick elevator pitch of Derek.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Scott and Sarah. Truly appreciate it and appreciate the work you guys are doing. My name is Derek Herrera. I currently live in Orange County, California, in San Clemente, and served for Marine Infantry and Raider as a special operations officer for 8.5 years. Unfortunately, got injured in 2012 in Afghanistan, but through that experience, found a new passion in medical technology and medical device entrepreneurship. And so since then, have started a few companies in the medical device space. Most impactful one thus far is Eurodev Medical, which I'm currently the CTO of still, and have a couple other projects that are going on as well. And then outside of that, fortunate to be involved with a few nonprofits, including the Marine Raider Foundation, MedTech Vets, and the American Technon Society. And live here in Orange County with my wife and two boys. So Maura and my twin boys who are just turned 4, Hunter and Hudson. And so very fortunate and fortunate to have their support and to be able to live here.
Yeah, indeed. You really are. But before we get into the interview here, I'm going to hop to the very end. The last couple of things you talked about, your wife and family. That's an incredible story there, with your wife, and your two boys are freaking adorable, man. I'm a dad of 2 daughters, and they're adorable, and I love them. But whenever you have, whenever you post about them, they're good looking kids. I can imagine just how proud you are to be their dad. And I think folks always enjoy when you post a little story about them. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, they got their mother's looks and they're very fortunate. So it turned out good, and we're blessed. So
yeah, indeed. Yeah, it's easy to see. And I always tell folks that my daughters, of course, they have their mom's looks. I guess that's probably the first thing folks will notice, but they also have her brain. She's an engineer. So luckily they've got her looks, her smarts, and my stick to itness. So I guess that's my part of the equation. So, okay,
they got my stubbornness for sure. So we're working on that. That's been apple didn't fall far from the tree there. So
yeah, well, and that's a good thing, right? At least that's the way I try to frame it for me. But okay, well, look, let's do this. Let's kind of go back to the genesis thing here. Everyone's got a story to tell, and I want to start with you as a young man. You're at the Naval Academy, which is a very prestigious university. Not everyone gets to go to an academy. A senator, I guess, or a congressman has to get involved to sponsor and say, hey, this person is good to go. So you go through, you get approved, and you were a systems engineer, right? That was your degree, and you were also a Marine option. So what's your why story as it comes to being a Marine?
Yeah, so the short story is I fell backwards into it. So I was fortunate to get appointed by then Senator Joe Biden from the great state of Delaware, which is where I graduated from high school in, which was cool. I've never met him actually, but his staff was kind enough and saw something in me that enabled me to move forward and become a midshipman. And then while at the academy, you're all midshipman until your senior year. And so you start competing for different slots and specialties like Marine Air, Marine Ground, submarines, Naval Special Warfare, Navy pilot. You rank order your choices, and then the better you've done and performed as a midshipman, the more likely you are to receive your top choices. And so my top choice is actually Navy SEALs, as Naval Special Warfare, and I didn't get selected, which was at the time incredibly humbling, but was actually the best possible thing that could have happened to me, because I had worked hard to put myself in a position to be successful in achieving that goal, but wasn't ready. I wasn't emotionally mature enough at that point in my life, and other people were frankly, better candidates that got selected. And so, fortunately for me, I had a mentor who suggested I consider going to the Marine Corps. At that time, I really didn't like Marines, because the only Marines at the Naval Academy are all drill instructors. So it's all these gunnery sergeants and master sergeants, and they're like, you think they don't like recruits? Like, they really don't like midshipmen.
That's right.
And they're there for years, and that's the only enlisted Marines you really see. And so I was like, man, I don't want to be like that at all. And so the mentor I had, who was awesome, he's like, hey, Derek, I think you would be a good Marine officer. I'm willing to help you. I'm willing to put my name on the line to help you become one, because it's still very competitive. It's very, very competitive. There were 400 people, I think, at the Naval Academy who put Marines as their first choice for about 225 slots that year. And here I am. I didn't put it as my first choice. I'm a second or third choice, actually. Luckily, because of my performance and the way things shook out, and because of his credibility and vouching for me, he helped me become a Marine. And so at that point, I was 100% committed, and being the best Marine officer I could be, and didn't look back.
Right. Wow. That's a pretty cool story, and something that I see in just talking to you now is, and you probably didn't have it then, because most of us don't when we're that age, but the humility that, comes out in your story and the way you're telling it now is very telling. And yeah, it's a very selective process at any of the academies, but yeah, boy, to hear that there are that many folks that were vying for those coveted Marine slots, and that you were fortunate enough to get it. They obviously saw something in you that maybe you didn't even see in yourself at the time. Where when you're younger, you see things differently. But folks that are older, because of their perspective and their time, they can see things that maybe us younger guys and gals don't at the time. So yeah, that's pretty intense. Yeah, SEALs. I remember when I had posted that you're coming on the show, and Johnny Walker was, kind of came in and explained, about what the Raiders are. And so that's what I want to talk about next. And, so now we know your entry into the Marine Corps. So you spent time as a Marine Raider. So tell us about what a Marine Raider is. Now, obviously that's the Marine Corps', share to the special operations community under the Department of Defense. But tell us more about, what a Raider is and what it means to be a Raider, what their function is, and what service they provide to our nation. Yeah.
So a Marine Raider, as you mentioned, is the special operations component for the Marine Corps. And so up until 2006, there were no Marines formally or persistently engaged or assigned to SOCOM, which is the Special Operations Command. And so we had very specialized units like reconnaissance and force reconnaissance and all these things dating very far back, in time. But until 2006, until there was a congressional mandate from, well, actually not even a congressional mandate, it was Secretary of Defense signed the order to create Marine Special Operations Command. Marines were not special operators. And that's a very simple black and white congressional law explanation. And what that goes to is there's certain laws which classify what is a special operation and what is not. And if you aren't part of the Special Operations Command, you are not legally authorized to conduct special operations. And so that's basically the way the Marine Raider community was created in 2006. And ultimately what we do is similar to what other special operators do, just with a Marine kind of flair to it. And so we're not as good at scuba diving as Navy SEALs. You know, we're not as good at jumping out of planes as, you know, Army Green Berets and those sorts of things most times. But we have a unique skill set that we bring to the fight as Marines, being able to operate in a very broad array of climates and you know, in versatility that we bring to the battle. And so it's really amazing to see, especially in this short amount of time. We've only been around since 2006. All of the things that, because of the strength of the men and women in the community and establishing themselves, we're now, I would argue, as good or better than all the other services, and we operate at a similar level in the joint environment. And so when we deployed to Afghanistan, we had a major who was our Marine company commander, and I was a captain as a Marine Raider team commander. But alongside us, we had SEAL platoons, Army ODAs, all working for this Marine. And so it's a completely joint environment. So we're all doing similar work, with the exception of the Air Force. They have a more specialized mission and different chains for, you know, for the medical evacuation piece that they do. But in general, Army Green Beret, Marine Raider, Navy SEAL, generally the same. I just like to say we're, you know, more handsome, better looking, run faster, jump higher, lift heavier weights, all those sorts of things. But
well, those things matter, you know, they
count for something. So
yeah. Well, hey, for folks that couldn't see, you know, obviously when you do something like this, and there are folks that are watching, people make comments in the text, and it comes up on the screen. You won't see it. But Johnny Walker served as Marine, and he he made a comment, said that's just a nice way of saying that Marine Raiders kick ass. But so.
yeah, and ultimately, you know, so I would say in general we're similar. But one of the things that is very unique and has really built to the strength of the community is the culture, the mindset, and the ethos of being a Marine, and what that means within the community. It's also the size of the community is very different. So there's less than 1,000 active duty Marine Raiders. We're working to grow that, but at the same time, there's less than 1,000 compared to, you know, roughly, I think 4,000 or 5,000 Navy SEALs and 20,000 Green Berets, right? So just smaller, very tight knit community, and we work hard, right? Everybody there is continue to work hard and raise the bar every day, which is what everybody tries to do. But it's a very phenomenal unit, and very fortunate to have had the opportunity to serve.
Absolutely, and you know, just like the Marine Corps in general, you know, we're a smaller organization, but we're just a little better than the other services. You know, that's just kind of the way it is. So yeah, it's following right in line with that. So, well, you know, the other thing about
I'd argue a lot better. Just gonna leave it at that.
Hey, what's up, Johnny? Hey, I appreciate that. Just for the play of the game here, at the very end, I'm gonna, if we have time, you know, I'll open it up for a question and answer and comment. So I appreciate that, Johnny. You're a good man. So okay, so anyhow, going forward here and talking about Marine Raiders, they are doing a lot of really good things, you know, post time in service, which we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there are a lot of folks doing really cool stuff in that space. So, you know, again, we'll talk about that here in a few minutes. But now, so I want to go on to, you served in Afghanistan, and you served in combat, and you were wounded in combat in June of 2012, and that injury has changed the trajectory of your life, and it's helped shape who you are today. And it's kind of led to where you are in your entrepreneurial space, and the other things, the many things that you're involved in life to help others and to make life better for people. So what can you tell us about that part of your story?
Yeah. The day I got injured was the best and worst day of my life. And so prior to my injury, I was at the pinnacle of my career, working with the people I wanted to be working with, doing exactly what I wanted to be doing in my life, having the impact that we sought to have in support of, you know, our overarching objectives and a cause that was greater than ourselves. So I wanted to be there. I wanted to be doing what we were doing, and to be around the people that I was doing that with. In an instant, because I had been shot and was instantly paralyzed, and now have, a permanent injury because of that, that was taken from me. Instantly I could no longer be a Marine Raider. I could no longer be a part of the community that I worked hard to be a member of. I could no longer be around the people that I'd built these incredibly close bonds with. And so it was the worst day of my life because of that. But it was the best day of my life as a leader, because in the situation we were in the chaos of, and the gravity of the firefight that we were dealing with, the incoming volumes of enemy fire, I witnessed a level of heroism, bravery, and selflessness that I don't think I will ever see in any coordinated fashion again. What I would argue is the pinnacle of my career and potentially my life, to have been a member of that team and to call myself a team leader. That is something that will be unmatched. And so for me, that is the best experience I could ever have as a leader. Moving forward from that incident, there, was a long period of trying to reset and figure out how to move forward with my life. But I'm fortunate to be alive, and I'm grateful for every day that I have. And over time, realize that that's an opportunity that I have every day that a lot of people don't, and other members of our community that I knew that didn't come back from serving overseas. And so over time, tried to shift this and just create an atmosphere where that experience could be framed in a positive way, so that I could go forward and take advantage of every day and all the opportunities that I still have to help people make the world a better place, impact other people's lives in a positive way. And so that was basically the situation and what occurred on June 14th of 2012. But to get into a little more of the specifics, what we had been doing was we were conducting what's called village stability operations, which is similar to what people in Vietnam had done, and just a very kind of traditional foreign internal defense or special operations mission. And what that required us to do was to go and live amongst a local village in Afghanistan and try to help build the conditions so that they could be able to sustain their community and resist the influence of the Taliban at that time. And so we did this in the Helmand province, which was very combative and highly kinetic, with a lot of enemy activity. So literally a few miles away across the river, complete Taliban government, complete Taliban control, us on one side, bad guys on the other, basically. And they would send people to try to, fight us every day. And we would try to defend ourselves or catch them before they did that. And so be proactive in that mission. And so that was how we ended up doing these patrols, these ambush patrols. And on the morning of June 14th, 2012, we'd occupied a compound and found ourselves in a very heavy enemy engagement. And during a lull in the fighting, I switched out on the rooftop with one of our Marines. And shortly after that, had been shot through the shoulder into the spine, where I was immediately paralyzed from the chest down. And so that was the day that I got injured. And then in the aftermath of that, in addition to myself being shot, the other Marine to my left had been shot actually through the neck as well. And so there were 10 of us, 10 Americans and 10 of our Afghan partners on this mission out in the middle of this village, working together to survive. And now 2 of the Americans are now potentially critically wounded. So that pulls people out of the fight to help keep us alive. Our team had to deal with this, call in, air support to help keep the enemy at bay, call in a medical evacuation to get us out of there. And then even once they were able to get the medical evacuation helicopter in, and we have this on video and images that we've seen from the helicopter that came in, every person that had to carry us to the helicopter was unable to defend themselves when they were doing that. And without a single hesitation to a man, they all ran out there to do that and put their lives on the line to save mine and the sergeant, who ultimately recovered from that injury as well. And so that's the ultimate circumstance of what had happened that day. And that was early in the morning as well. So then now they still continue to stay there and fight all day until nighttime, when they could evacuate that position and regress back to the base. But it was a chaotic and kinetic environment. But due to the training that we had, the team bonds that we had, and the proficiency of the people that were in the unit at that time, and our Afghan partners as well, we were able to, survive that incident. And it could have been a lot worse. So we're fortunate to have that ability and the abilities that we have today.
Amen. Just listening to that, it puts you right there, on the scene. I'm a very visual person, and I can see all that, playing out, and the professionalism and the courage that's there speaks so much to those other Marines and the other men that you mentioned that were in the firefight. And for those that have been to combat, it's a very different experience. You train for it, and you never know what it's going to be like until you're actually there. And even something just as simple as flying in with the MEU and seeing from the up in the helicopter, looking down and seeing all the things that are happening, the whole MEU moving forward, all the the Navy, all the Marines that are involved in everything that they do, all the different MOSs that come together to make things happen. But it's all about that guy or now gal on the ground that are pulling the trigger. It's all in support of what they do, and the veracity, the kinetic environment that you guys are in those intense moments. War goes from being bored to being incredibly engaged. And yeah, it's the other part to that, Derek, is you never know how you're going to react to things. And when you see people reacting and going above and beyond, and they put aside their personal safety, like you had talked about, to do what they're there to do. And they put their life on the line, and they're willing to risk their life to save a fellow Marine. Certainly the other branches, folks do the same thing, but that's what we're about, those of us who serve. And we all have a different role, and we all serve to the best of our capability. And I just want to say, thank you to you and to those folks that were with you that day. Thank you for your service, for your courage, for your love of each other. We always talk about the love of the country and the love of the flag, but when it really comes down to it, you're there taking care of that guy or gal on your left and right, and you're there for each other, and you have to be. And that's an amazing story that you shared. And thank you again for your service, and certainly for what you're doing now. But I didn't want to interrupt you, because you were telling a very good rendition of what happens, and it means so much to all of us that there are people like you that do and did what you do, that continue to go to those places on this planet that we unfortunately have to be. So thanks, Derek. That's
appreciate that. And to your point about differences and mission, that it was interesting, because at that time we'd been having some beef with our Afghan counterparts, and they were being a little challenging with us. But the second that bullets started flying and this happened, we put all of that aside, right? And I'm alive today because of their help as well. One of my interpreters helped carry me right to the helicopter, and it's an incredible experience. And the teamwork, like I said, is something that is truly unique.
It is. And Afghanistan and Iraq were two very challenging environments for a number of reasons. Even in Iraq, I'm a veteran from Iraq. I served in combat in Iraq, and the cultural differences. it seems like we continue to learn these lessons, we know in advance, but somehow we just relearn them, when we go places. And kind of the same thing there, folks, you had your differences of how to do things and, cultural differences. You wind up giving toolkits to folks saying, okay, these are for this, piece of equipment. They stay with this piece of equipment. You come back the next day and half the tools are gone, because they're bartering them off, and that they just don't see it the same way, right? But when the when the chips are down, it is amazing how people come together and they do what they need to do. And so, all right, well,
yeah, and I think the last point on that too is the thing that's very unique about it, and that I think is compelling is seeing that experience and the humanity through any sort of like survival lens, and understanding that is an asset for anybody that's been through it. So being able to have that experience and understand the resolve that you and others have, and the resilience is empowering, I think. Yeah, it's really unique.
It is. And if you recall, I name every episode, and this episode, I was going to say Resilient Raider, right? Because there is resiliency into things that we do, and you need to be resilient. But yeah, not everybody serves in combat, and you've probably seen this as well, and you've heard it. You have people that have served in the way Afghanistan closed out, the way Iraq closed out, and it's not specifically because of how things closed out. But what I'm about to say is sometimes people feel like they didn't do enough, right? Especially folks that aren't combat arms. They feel like, well, I wasn't in combat, or I could have done more. Certainly folks that are combatants, there are folks that feel like they could have done more. Everyone's got a very personal story, and especially when they hear your story, the sacrifice involved not only with what happened to you, but the people that were there on the scene. And I just want to always bring this up when we talk about things like this. I always want to try to be good to say, hey, look, you served when and where, and you do the best you can do. You don't really have a choice in where you go, but you have a choice into what you do when you're there. And as long as you're doing those things, you're raising the bar, you're going above and beyond, you're leading your people, you're sacrificing for them, you're doing all those things that you should be doing, then you've done enough. And a lot of people beat themselves up about that, and it's
I couldn't agree more. Like, I couldn't care less what box you think you're checking or not checking, or what card you think you carry that you don't carry. That is such and it's very easy to fall into, and sometimes our culture will create that, the haves and have nots. Oh, you
right.
have this ribbon, you don't have that ribbon. That is such an immature mindset for anybody that perpetuates it, and incredibly unprofessional. And I can't, I despise everything about that mindset that there is, because every day you're tested, and the test that I went through is no different than the challenges and tribulations and trials that others go through. Right. And that's the most important thing I could share with anybody, is I'm no different than anybody. Like, if you live long enough, you will be tested. How you respond and how you bounce back or address those types of issues is the measure of your character. And whether it's medical issues, combat, stress, financial stress, business, entrepreneurship, all of those things they manifest themselves the same way neurochemically. Like, who is the judge to say that someone who's going through stage 4 cancer and chemotherapy has it harder or easier than me, right? Or who's the, like, there is no judge, there is no barometer. So a lot of people, it's very easy to make it binary and try to compare yourself to everybody else, especially in the military with, oh, I went to combat, I didn't go to combat. Who cares, right? I don't care. I care about who shows up every day and who works hard and tries and is a professional. And that's the sooner that people can make that switch and understand that's it. They don't have it. It's totally out of their control, right? Like they're not the ones making the plans of when the enemy's going to come and fight them or not, right? Or when they get deployed or not. Like that is something that's so far out of their control. The most empowered and the most effective professionals I've worked with flip that switch and it's a non-issue, right?
Right.
Because they don't care like that. It's kind of a stoic, potentially a stoic mindset, right? Where it's like, not in my control, don't care, right? What's in my control? I'm showing up, I'm dealing with these challenges today. How am I going to handle that? How hard am I going to work? How smart am I going to be in addressing these issues? How many problems am I going to solve? How many people are going to help today, right? Like, this is my focus, not on, oh man, I wish I got sent to combat, or I didn't feel like I did enough, right? Like, you know,
Right.
and I don't mean to sound trite or like trivialize that, but like,
Well, not at all, Derek.
Call for anybody that has fell victim to that mentality or that cultural aspect. Like, you make your own, you know, you're in control, right? Like, focus on what you're in control of and be a good person. And that's like the thing that gets me too about like a lot of like civilian military divide, all this stuff. Like, most people in the military, like, the only, like, we don't care if you join the military or not. Most people in the military don't want there to be a draft or mandatory service, all this stuff. Like, all that matters is you're a good person and you like show that you like care about the country a little bit, or you appreciate it, right? Like, that's what people care about, right? Like, I don't care that anybody in my neighborhood served or not. Like, in the military, I care that they do something to make the community better or help people, or just generally good people, or good Americans, right? Like,
yeah, amen to that. Absolutely.
So I'm on my soapbox, but like that, it really gets me going when I hear a lot of that, because if you allow, like, the people who perpetuate that cycle, or that cycle, or that allow that cycle to be perpetuated, create a victimhood mentality. And that is like, it's cancerous, right?
It is absolutely.
It crushes so much potential and so much opportunity for anybody that unfortunately can fall victim to it. But it's built into the human DNA, is like, it's easy to feel sorry for yourself, but you can consciously choose not to, right? And when you have that, and you have that power, and you realize that power that you hold, that's when you can unleash all of the capability and that resides within you, right? And so it gets me going. Sorry.
Yeah, no, hey, absolutely, Derek, that's so well said. And, you know, to hear it from you, it's even, you know, more important because of who you are and what you've done, you know, not only while you were a Marine, but what you've done post-service. And, you know, most folks that are, you know, operators that are, you know, the guys and gals pulling the trigger, I would imagine that most of those folks want the other folks doing their job. You know, we don't want you up in the line pulling the triggers. We want you doing your, you know, combat support functions so that you guys can do what you need to do when you need to do it to the, you know, maximum impact. And that's what a team's all about. That's, you know, that's the way, you know, that's why we have all those different functions of war fighting and different things, different jobs that we all have to do to bring down freaking max firepower on the enemy and win the day. And, you know, that's what the Marine Corps does very well. And, you know, go ahead.
It's a hallmark of professionalism, right?
It is.
It's what is my job? How do I contribute? How can I do it the best I can? Right. And it's like, and the other secret too, which like people that have done there and been that know, is like, there's always someone who's done something cooler. Right. So even in the special operations community, right? Like, you know, oh, well, I went to combat, but man, I wasn't that good at it. I only lasted 6 weeks and then I got shot. Right. Like, you know, so you know, what box do I check? Right. Like, what about the guys who've been there multiple deployments and, you know, and then go to even more elite and special units. And like, there's always someone who's done something better or cooler. Like, it never ends. You're never there until you are confident and comfortable with the experiences you had, and you just show up and if you think of like the framework of Maslow and the hierarchy of needs, and you're self-actualized and transcendent, that's where you unlock the potential that's within you, right? And you can't be there if you're focused on comparing yourself to everybody else and
Right.
what they're recognizing within you. So
yeah, and there's a level of humility there. There's a maturation process that we all go through, and that this is another reason why I wanted to bring you on, because I knew that you would get right into exactly what you are saying, and that's why I said Relentless Raider. It's one thing to be resilient. You need to be resilient, but you need to be relentless too. You need to make sure that you stay on what it is you believe in, and that every day you get up and you have a sense of purpose, and you go out and you execute, and you're checking yourself, right, to make sure that you're still going in that right direction, but you're resilient and you're relentless, because you have to be. So, hey, thanks for sharing that part of your story. It's powerful, and I think a lot of folks absolutely need to hear that. Especially people who are transitioning from the military, because we all leave under different circumstances. Whether you're injured, or whether you're frustrated and you just want to leave the military, or you're retiring. Well, whatever. We all have our reasons for why we leave. And the purpose of this story is to bring about stories of transition. There are stories that are just incredibly, oh my gosh, you're a lucky son of a gun. How did you do all that? Or, wow, that really sucks, man. How did you get past, what happened to do the great things you're doing now? These stories are meaningful and they matter. And it's all about sharing these stories so that we can put a little bit of light on that path, because even the most ready to transition person is going to find that it was probably a little bit different than what they expected. And maybe they've come across challenges that they certainly weren't even thinking about that have come their way in transition. So being able to have people that, have navigated that transition, that have done so successfully, that have had, huge challenges to overcome, and they've done that, that's what, sharing those things is so important, because we need to have success stories. We need to have those things to keep us, to have a good foundation, to keep us anchored in, to say, yes, if he can do that, or if she can do that, well, holy crap, you know what, I can too. And so that's what I'm going to do. And so that's again, talking about, relentless or resilient, that's so important. And so I want to talk now, Derek, moving forward. So I know, you served for a bit, post injury, and I see that there's a company called Rewalk Robotics, and that you were a brand ambassador for them for a period of time. And they have a unique purpose, right? That they had a device that you wound up, using, and again, you were a ambassador for. Share with us a little bit about what that was and what it did for you.
Yeah, so I was unpaid exoskeleton model, which is awesome. But no, in all seriousness, that was a device and an experience that I had that changed my life, changed the trajectory of my life. And so I had been recovering, and in the immediate aftermath of my injury, I tried to become an expert overnight in spinal cord injury recovery, approved methods, non-approved methods, experimental technologies. And this exoskeleton technology had been in development for some time, but it was still not FDA cleared. I worked and massaged my way, kind of forced my way into the company before they had FDA clearance, and convinced them to allow me to use the device as part of their ongoing clinical studies, which led to me being the first person in America to own a device due to the generosity of a lot of local donors and the Marine Raider Foundation, because this device was not reimbursed. And so had this device. This device is the only device that enables people who are paralyzed to stand and walk. And it's basically a robotic system that I can strap into with motors at the hips and knees, and allows me to stand and walk. I was still on active duty at this time and had been working, using the device, trying to advocate for new technologies, and set a goal to use this device to be able to leave the Marine Corps without using a wheelchair. And so I was able to accomplish that goal in November of 2014 when I left the military and was medically retired. And was able to stand and walk and salute the flag for the last time, leaving the Marine Corps on the same way that I came in. The reason this example changed my life was not just that simple aspect of technology and innovation, but I had the opportunity to go to Israel and meet the inventor of this technology. And he was a quadriplegic just like me. Or, well, I'm a paraplegic, but he was paralyzed in a similar fashion to me.
Right.
He'd been paralyzed 20 years before and had been working to develop this in his garage. And the relatability of that was sobering to me because it shook my view of the environment I was in and made me question the potential impact that I could have. And so this is a guy who was paralyzed. He was just like me. He was, had an engineering degree, a very smart guy. And with a little bit of tenacity and grit and ingenuity, he cobbled together this business and created this product that now is worldwide and helping people just like me, right? Do something that they could never do before. And so when I thought about that and understood the impact of that, while I was going through this process, I started to question everything, all of the assumptions around my environment and what I could control, right? So the Stoic mindset, focus on what you can control and what you can't control. But what it doesn't tell you is, how do you know what you can control and you can't control? And the only way to know is to try and to experiment and to do things that you don't know if you're going to be successful at. And so that's how I led down this path of entrepreneurship. And the other issue I had was with bladder management at that time. And so the problem I was trying to solve was, if you're paralyzed or have other conditions, you rely on these catheters or devices to empty your bladder because you can't control your bladder. And the process was terrible. And so I asked myself a question, was like, why isn't anybody else solving this? And, I found out they just weren't interested in doing it. I was obviously interested in doing it and passionate about it. And so seeing the experience that Dr. Amit Gopher had, who created the Rewalk robotics exoskeleton, and was successful in doing so, decided to put my life on that path and dedicate the rest of my life to developing innovative technologies that would help people just like me. And so I was going back to business school at the time, started diving into this arena as a medical technology entrepreneur, medical device entrepreneur, no experience whatsoever. And it's no small miracle that our company is still in business today. And we've actually built this product, but the first product we've built was literally a napkin sketch. I was literally drawing it with a pencil and grid paper, because when
those are the best ones, Derek.
in 2006, I still have them. In 2006, I studied engineering, but in 2006, we weren't doing CAD. We didn't have 3D modeling and computer aided design, right? Some people did, but we didn't. We were drawing it on paper and pencil. And so that's where I started. But with a lot of luck and a lot of people that helped out and the environment that we're in, we've been able to advance that to a device that's now gone through multiple clinical studies, and hopefully we'll get FDA cleared soon to be on the market and help people regain control of bladder function. And so that was a critical lesson for me to learn. And the lesson that I learned was, sometimes you don't know what's in your control and what's not in your control. And the only way to find out is to experiment. And to experiment, you have to be comfortable failing. You will fail. But if you never try, you're leaving so much opportunity and so much on the table, because what if you actually could influence the outcome or change your environment or help other people, but you were too scared to try, right?
Right.
And the only way to find out is to go for it and to take the risk and experiment.
You're absolutely right, Derek. I mean, our own minds and inhibition, the things that hold us back, it's deep within, our inner being to be afraid, and getting past and being willing to put yourself out there is huge, because you're not going to get anywhere in life or in business or in your career if you're not willing to put yourself out there and be, relentless in your pursuit. You went to UCLA, and that's where you got your, was it an MBA at UCLA? And so you've talked about, you went forward and you talked about founding your own company. It was Spinal Singularity, right? And then you changed the name to Eurodev. And when I went and looked into the device that you're referring to, I mean, that is revolutionary. That is incredible. I had an uncle and a brother-in-law that absolutely could have used that. It would have made the quality of their life so much better if they would have had access to that. Of course, it wasn't around when they were struggling with the issues that they had. But that's the other thing about you, Derek, that I find so intriguing. Your story is remarkable, but what I find incredible is that you are focusing to help other people. Would this help you? Yes, but you're seeing beyond that. You're seeing there are other people that are, having these struggles. How can I make it better? We're only here for a very short period of time, and we don't know when we're not going to be here. And when you're here, if you're focused on helping others, boy, that brings so much back to you as a person. It helps heal. It helps get you focused on what's important in life. And I truly believe it's in helping others. And you're making the best of both worlds. You're helping others and you're being successful at what you do, which allows you to do more. And in the more that you're doing, you also are the founder of Habit Camera. And I looked into that a bit as well. There's some things that you did to get there. It didn't happen overnight. It took some traveling. It took some research. It took, what's it called? Intellectual property to get that all nailed down and then to move forward with that. Tell us a little bit about Habit Camera.
Yeah. So before I tell you about Habit Camera, just want to summarize what you were just saying, which is awesome with a military analogy, which is what we say is when in doubt, focus out.
Right. Yes.
So that comes from patrolling, when you learn how to patrol. And basically the idea is when in doubt, like if you're not sure what to do, put yourself to work, look around, look outboard, don't think about yourself. And the analogy is what you said, which is incredibly powerful. And I won't spend too much time on, but is if you feel sorry for yourself, if you're having a hard time, if you're struggling, stop, help somebody else with a problem. I guarantee you will feel better, period. Like I have never seen this fail. When you focus on other people and sacrificing for others and giving back, you stop feeling sorry for you. Like you just feel better. Like it's like the chemical reaction when you smile, like your body, your chemicals, it changes, right? Like, but even more like to 1000x. So when in doubt, focus out.
Yeah, I believe that with my heart and soul. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and Habit Camera. So this was another project I was fortunate to become aware of, and a foundation had been laid by researchers at a VA hospital to develop a very innovative tool for people just like me, but also with a variety of skin conditions. Anybody with wounds, pressure wounds, diabetic foot ulcers, any other skin breakdown, dermatology, acne, skin cancer screening. And basically it's a very simple problem and a very simple solution. The problem is it's hard to see your skin on the back half of your body. And so right now what they did for me is they gave me a little mirror, and you're supposed to hold it up and like look around, and you're supposed to inspect your skin. And then if you see something, you're supposed to document it or tell the clinician or by the phone. And they're always like, well, I don't know, just come in. And then someone inspects it. Or, you have to have your partner take all these pictures and you're looking at them, and it's the least romantic thing you ever want, right? People taking pictures, like, and it doesn't work, right? And so what these researchers found out was a very simple thing. They have a wireless camera at the end of this flexible handle that connects to a smartphone application. So it makes it easy for an individual to independently see and inspect their skin comfortably and ergonomically on the tablet or app that they're looking at in real time. Moreover, because it's digital, now you can save the images, you can save the videos and text them or email them to your clinicians to support telehealth. And so now instead of having to try to communicate to your nurse or doctor over the phone, yeah, I saw this spot, it looks like it's getting bigger. right? Now there's a digital quantifiable way to share that information, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. So
It is. Yeah.
been really excited. We've had a little bit of delays with some of the manufacturing, and it hasn't been easy, but we are going to ship our first units by the end of the year, as soon as we get, some stuff sorted with manufacturing and things. But it's a very simple device. We're fortunate to license the patents from the VA. And so it's invented by VA researchers, licensed to a veteran-owned business, and hoping to help people across the world with this technology.
Wow, that's another incredible story. And yeah, the technology that we have, you're leveraging, you're going to that next level. And it's a smart way of doing exactly, how you explained. And I noticed that you talk about, when you read through the information, it's, designed in the U.S., assembled in the U.S. by U.S. veterans or their family members. That's a big deal. You're giving back yet again.
Yeah. Right now it's my wife and 4-year-old kids. So I'm just kidding. They're not building it.
Yeah.
But we are assembling everything locally. We're ideally, eventually we'd love to have 100% like all of it built, manufactured, assembled here in the US. Right now we're not there due to costs, but
Right.
we're taking steps to address that issue. And so right now it is designed and assembled here in the US. And our plan is to try to only hire veterans or family members of veterans to help, provide them with some supplemental income.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic goal, giving back again, like I was saying. And, the other thing is you mentioned about, issues, logistics issues, distribution issues that are making things hard, across the globe. Certainly we're seeing that here in the US. There are container ships that are just sitting off the coast that are, they're packed full of stuff. And, this is a very difficult time to try to run a business, much less to be an entrepreneur in these startups. I can imagine how much it magnifies the difficulty to doing what you need to do to get your product out there. So, God bless you for doing this and for hanging in there. Best of fortune to you to be able to be productive and get that out to the folks that need it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. It's not easy,
Yeah.
but nothing worth having ever is, right? So
yeah, there we go. You're that relentless raider.
yeah.
Okay, well, so now I'm looking at my notes here real quick. In addition to the work that you're doing in the medical device industry, you're also sharing your time on a number of boards. So you're a board member on the American, is that the Technon system? Is that how you say that? Or society,
American
rather?
Technon Society. Yeah.
Okay, so you're a board member there. You're the president of the Marine Raider Foundation, and you're also the chairman of MedTech Vets. I know we're getting close to an hour here, and I want to be respectful of your time. How much can you share with us about what you're doing, what those organizations are, and why you're involved with them, and kind of a quick story on those three?
For sure. The American Technon Society is a nonprofit that raises money to support the Technon University in Israel, which is kind of like the MIT, the high-tech university in Israel. My connection there is that was where the rewalk was invented
Right.
by a graduate of that university. And over time, I became more involved and more supportive of their efforts. So what they do is they just provide funding for students and researchers, just university initiatives, which are pretty broad-based and apolitical. And so that's what that organization does. I'm very fortunate to be a part of it. It's a massive organization, so I play like a very, very small role, just trying to help out as a board member. With Marine Raider Foundation, as soon as I left the service, I was helped by Marine Raider Foundation during my time. Like I said, they helped purchase the Exoskeleton. And so we'll continue to try to pay them back for the rest of my life, because there's, a massive debt that I will always owe them for what they did for me and my family during my time of need. And I get a lot out of giving back to that organization. And what we do is we just meet the needs of the Marine Raider community that are unmet by the government. And so that could be experimental medical technology, the therapies. They could be Gold Star family support and travel and resiliency programs to keep Gold Star families, together and highly functioning, and within the community that they are. So that's one of our most incredible events. Every year we fly out any of the Gold Star families from the Marine Special Operations Command for basically a week together in a nice location where they can have respite, right, and some time to heal and relax and bond as families, and then also share some of the experiences, the memories of their loved ones with others who've been through the same thing. And so that's incredibly impactful. And then with the other organization, MedTech Vets, very simple proposition. We help veterans find careers in the medtech and life science industry. And so we have great relationships and connections with pretty much every major medical device manufacturer here in the US and abroad. They all want a diverse and talented workforce. Veterans often don't consider careers in this industry for whatever reasons, and they're underrepresented. And so we put veterans through a free short transition seminar and then handpick mentors and companies for them to help get employed. And so with that, just over the past year, we have a really, really compelling stat, which is of the veterans that have gone through our program, 67% are employed within 6 months or less after graduation.
Wow.
And really proud of that and the hard work that our team has done there. But ultimately, those are the 3 nonprofits that I've worked with. And kind of my filter for everything at my time is medical technology, medical device entrepreneurship, veterans, and then spending time with my family. And so really fortunate to have some amazing opportunities to help give back in these ways. And it's a lot of stuff, right? And so obviously I'm not doing any of this by myself. I have teams that help me with all of this work, and they
Sure.
do most of the work, but being able just to champion the cause and be a cheerleader or help out however I can, it makes it easy to work a lot, right? Because
Right.
if you're getting more out of it than you're putting into it, and you feel like if it's fun, it doesn't feel like work, right? So you don't mind working all the time, a lot, right? So it's been good. I've been very fortunate.
Yeah, you have, and you talked about this debt that you believe that you have with the Raider Foundation. I know this, but sometimes it's good just to hear it. Well, it's the other way around. They feel the exact same way, and that Americans absolutely, there's a debt of gratitude that we will never be able to repay you or any other veteran who has served. And it's so important that we acknowledge that with each other, because we care and love each other. And you're doing these things because of that. You're a good person. We can absolutely see that. But you're still in the fight. You're making life better for other people. You're making life better for your family. You're a shining example for everyone, for your kids, for your wife. And I know your wife must be the exact same way. She stood by you. And that's a whole nother story, obviously. But I'm so proud of you as an individual, and I'm so thankful that you came on to today's show, because your story is compelling. Yeah, you could have completely taken this in a different direction, and many people do for different reasons. And you've been able to overcome all of these challenges. And, just like with anyone else, you mentioned this, we all struggle. We all have our demons, or we all have things that are in our way. But I think the thing that is universal, and you mentioned as well, is we're the ones that create the speed bumps or the dead ends in our life. And once you realize that, and you consistently work to move forward and to put those things aside, and you're right, you don't do it by yourself, you do it with others as well, but you have to see that first. You have to realize that to be able to move to those other areas and to move forward. And, again, your story is very compelling. And, if you're able to do the things that you do and love and live those things, that's the other part of life that is so incredible. Yesterday I had a scheduled call, and one of the folks got sidetracked and they actually forgot that there was a call, which is fine. So Dr. Teresa Larson and I had a great conversation. We become friends as connections on LinkedIn. So she's now moved to Colorado. Without getting too deep into what I'm about to say, so that time we just spent catching up. So we spent an hour talking with each other. She's an awesome gal. And we talked about how often in life do you love your job? Not many people can say, I love what I do. I can't get enough of that. I don't want to go home because my job is so great. But when you're able to see goodness in what you do profession wise, along with building a strong life, that just rounds out your soul and it rounds out who you are as an individual. And I'm very happy to see that you're onto that and that you're living that. And you're again, a shining example, not just for the military, but just for anyone who is willing to listen and watch what you do. And thank you for your service, Derek. Thank you for helping veterans. Thank you for employing veterans and for being in the mix and for not being a quitter.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Scott. I appreciate it. And I would say too that, I don't feel like anybody owes me anything. The one thing that is helpful is everybody maximizing the use of their talents, right? And so I don't care what you're doing. I don't care if you're in the military or not. Human potential, right? We all have different gifts. We all have different talents. Like, just try, right? Just try to work hard, try to be good, try to do great things for causes you believe in. And that's a way to repay any debts to anybody in society and to make this place better.
And it is. And, as we transition and as we're trying to figure out, well, who am I now that I've left service? Yes, we all need to look for jobs or careers, most of us. But the other thing is, having that sense of purpose, keeping that drive, and the things that you're doing are absolutely doing that. They're giving you a sense of purpose. You talked about, helping others, how that helps build and sustain yourself. That, when you start to feel, down about something, if you get off and move forward to help someone else, the joy that brings back, it reciprocates back. And, folks that are transitioning have to understand that, you've got to stay connected with folks that you care about, but also be willing to put yourself out there to connect with new people, other veterans, because as veterans, we have affinity for other veterans because, that's who we are. So it's important to reach out and to maintain and build those other relationships so that you have folks to talk with, you have your story to share, others can help you, you can help them. It's just there's goodness involved in all of that. So, all right, well, Derek, we're just over an hour here. And again, I want to be, a good steward of your time because I do know that you're a very busy guy. And so I want to kind of wrap this up. And if there's folks that, have questions and want to ask questions, I want to do that. But I also want to bring to everyone's attention that you're a keynote speaker as well. So, I'm sure that when you have the time, folks are reaching out to you to come talk at events. Is there anything you want to share about that real quick?
Yeah. It's a side hustle. So it's not my day job. It's awesome. I love doing it. And so like, if there's any clients out there that are interested in, in hearing different stories and some of the frameworks that I've discussed briefly through some of my own personal life experience, happy to support. I just did one this past weekend, which was awesome for the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, and phenomenal group, so much fun. And so always a good time. So feel free to reach out anytime if you have any interest or if I can help you. Always love, like, unlocking human potential is truly something that I love doing. And I feel like thus far that's been the response from some of the different engagements I've been fortunate to have. Yeah,
I'm certain of that. Absolutely. And this, and as we're about to close out here, I don't want to forget to mention, if there's anything that you want me to post so folks know after we're done, we'll take a look at it. We'll post this to YouTube, then I'll come back on with a LinkedIn post that will reference and have the link to the YouTube full, hour plus interview here. So if there's anything that you'd like me to include in the text of that post, any websites, any, way for folks to get a hold of you for your keynote
For sure.
speaker, whatever that looks like, just send it to me and
Yeah.
I'll make sure I incorporate that into what I repost here on LinkedIn. And
Sounds
then
good.
also Sarah will put that into the description part of the YouTube post. So we'll cover it in those areas. So, okay. Well, Derek, real quick, I want to turn over real quick and see if Sarah has anybody that's out there and, has any questions or comments.
I bet Phil has one. Thanks for joining, Phil.
I just love hearing your voice, Derek.
I missed you too.
Anybody have a question? I don't see any hands up yet, but Derek, I'm just going to take this time really quickly just to thank you. This was an amazing, inspiring talk. And I love doing the power of our story to meet people like you that are so inspiring. We need people like you, and just to have your voice get out there. Scott, what a great pick. Thank you, Derek. Thank you so much.
Thank
Amen
you
to
for what
that.
you do, and thanks for the opportunity. I enjoyed it. So, thank you for the opportunity.
Well, it's an honor. Anybody want to add anything here?
Same,
Yeah.
Derek, thank you. I think I've somehow am already friends with you on LinkedIn, or have at least been following you. So thank you for sharing your story, and hearing it directly from you was very powerful and impactful. And just so many lessons I always learn just showing up to these things, in particular from you, this idea of you don't know what you can control or not control unless you try. I think that's a very powerful lesson, and just going out my day, going with onto my day with that. And this whole idea of when in doubt, look out. That's really, we talk about that a lot in these calls, and it just rings so true, right? If you have doubt about yourself, just look out. Okay, and then I have one more. This whole idea of like belonging, right? Like I show up on these calls like, who am I? I'm just a civilian. And I show up on these calls because, I want to support veterans, and I always gain so much from it. So thank you for kind of like opening that space and allowing for people to be like, you just bring your best self, no matter what you do, who you are, just bring your best self. So that was yet again another powerful message from you. So I'm sure your keynotes must be really great.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Van. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Of course.
Yeah. And Derek, just in case you don't know, Vaughn rather, she's call sign Rose. And, that's from her working with Angels 14. So if you don't know anything about them, you might want to check out Angels 14. They have a call that they do on Fridays, noon Eastern, to where folks are calling in, and it's a love fest, but it's also, there's lessons learned, there's leadership components. It's a really cool show. And she's one of three hosts for that show. So she's the rose between the two thorns that are Jeff and Dave.
Nice.
Dave
plug
may
for
not
what
be
they're
so
doing.
happy with another Marine joining though, Scott.
Well, Marines kind of take over, wherever they are. That's just what we do, right?
Sorry.
But, hey, this you mentioned this Phil. Who is this Phil gentleman? What's up with Phil?
Phil.
I actually got a link sent to me by Vaughn to hop on. I was like, wait, Derek's speaking. But yeah, Derek and I were actually at first in Sauber, First Raider Battalion together for several years. So Derek, I think something that you highlight, which I would love maybe to glean some insights for anybody else that watches this after, is speaking about not only community and the bond between those on the team, but then afterwards, how important were the communities around you, right? Whether it's family, at the unit, the Raider Foundation, their support, how important was that, I would say, in your resilience and being able to turn around, and how does that maybe translate to those, whether they're transitioning or in just other aspects of life?
Great question. I think first and foremost, my family support has been instrumental, right? Every step of the way. My community support has been pretty awesome too, for my, non-military community. My wife and I have started to put down roots here in San Clemente, and, our neighbors, other community members, other people are great, been supportive. And then obviously the Raider community has been influential. Probably the biggest thing I think is just the general support. Because one of the things that happens is a lot of times we get kind of scared of what people may think about what we're going to do or anything. And sometimes there's certain communities, we like to give each other a hard time, right? And like make fun of each other, which is good. But we also, at the heart of it, like we put on this persona sometimes that we're invincible, but to people in the community, we really are sensitive and care what other members of the community think. And so sometimes that can cause people to like have negative reactions to different things that people may try or experiment with or anything like that. And you get scared, right? You get scared of what people may think, which can lead to like not taking risks. I've been really, really encouraged because that's not been the case with our community. And I think it's due to the professionalism and the maturity of the people we had to serve with. But even the smallest well-wishing or positive messages or notes or the continued support from the community, it goes a long way. And you've been a part of that, Phil. Like there's so many networks that have been a part of that. And for those people that are like taking risk and going out and trying new things and putting themselves out there, especially in the public arena too, it's incredibly supportive to hear those sorts of things. So for example, I just started a podcast, right? And got a lot of feedback, but I got some feedback from one of the guys who I used to serve with. And I was really nervous about what he was going to say. And it was the most like genuine, positive, uplifting, like supportive message I could have ever imagined. And I was like, that's exactly what I needed to help continue push me forward on this journey as I, try something totally like random and outside of my comfort zone. So long answer to short question, all of those interlocking circles within the communities that we're a part of have been incredibly supportive, and I'm fortunate to have had that.
That's a great question. I'm glad I went back to Phil and, shook his tree a bit because what came out was excellent. And I did want to mention that, Derek, thanks for bringing that up, that Derek does have a podcast. It's called Forward with Derek Herrera. And I've seen a couple of them. They are very professionally done. I mean, look, if you've listened to and paid attention to Derek here the past hour, you would probably imagine it's not going to be anything short of excellent and professional, right? So you'll like it. He's had some really good folks on as well. So it's a compelling, and actually I think it's a riveting podcast. It's you guys need to check it out, and I'm sure you will. So Phil, thanks for your question, man. That was a good question.
Yeah, thanks for the plug. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and not because of me, but because of the guests. The guests are amazing. So I've been really fortunate. And that's one of the things, like, again, we talk about circumstance. I have been exposed to a group of people that I never, ever would have gained access to or met, right? Like I've met President Clinton. I've met President Bush. I've met Bob Woodruff, like all these people doing the most amazing things on similar journeys or similar trajectories. That's the story, right? Like, I'm so fortunate to have had those. And so that's the journey I'm sharing with people, selecting folks who have been through very interesting events or are pursuing some of the most incredible endeavors and missions that I think other people can relate to and learn from. And so it's been awesome.
Yes, it's another part of paying things forward that you do so well. And yeah, with a podcast, I mean, certainly I've never done a podcast before what I'm doing now. And you kind of you learn as you go. It's like you're flying in this plane that you're building while it's flying, right? And that's an analogy that I always like to use because it's so true, at least for me and in my approach to what I'm doing. And something you said is exactly how I feel. It's the show is about the guest, right? It's all about who you bring on and their story, that you're sharing their story in the goodness of what they're doing, because it matters. It's good. And you want folks to see that, it resonates. And the connection that we all have as veterans, that's kind of the baseline for, my conversations. But then I want to move past that, because we all have to move past our service. Not that we don't forget about it, not that we don't love it. Not that we don't have great memories. It's kind of like you played high school football. That's great. What else have you done? and so that's where, we talk about getting to doing those things. What are those things that help you, move past and live your life? So, okay. Well, do we have anybody else, Sarah? Looks like we're probably wrapping it up here.
Marina just said, no question, but thank you so much, Derek, for sharing your story. And just from the comments too, Johnny Walker also wanted to let you know that if you have any,
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, you
Supply
did.
chain
Okay.
issues.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have your chat.
Got
Sometimes
it.
I help. Yeah. No, I don't think there is anything else, Scott.
Well, that's fantastic. And I want to thank everyone who actually was on today viewing this live. I know some folks, view, then they have to go because they've got other things happening, but we do appreciate that. And as mentioned, we'll be reviewing this. We'll put it out on YouTube. And then once we do, I'll come back on LinkedIn and let everybody know that it's out there. Derek, again, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for all the good things you're doing in your community and helping others, beyond us veterans. It's very, very incredible story. And again, thank you for your time today.
Appreciate it. Pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me. And thanks for what you're doing. Thank you, Sarah and Scott, for all the work you're doing.
Amen to that, brother.